Go and watch an insect. That is the instruction. Not think about an insect, not admire one. Go to it, physically, and watch. The text sends the reader out of the house, down to the ground, to crouch over a line of ants and observe them long enough to learn something. It is one of the strangest teaching methods in the whole book, because it does not tell you the lesson first. It tells you to go look, and trusts that if you look properly, you will see it yourself. So most people, hearing this passage, supply the lesson they expect. They assume it is about hard work. The ant is busy. The ant carries things heavier than itself. The ant never stops. Therefore, the lesson must be, work hard like the ant. Stop being lazy. That is not the lesson. Or rather, it is the part of the lesson everyone already agrees with, which is why it is the part everyone stops at. The actual point is one verse deeper, in a line most readers pass straight over on their way to the moral they were expecting. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. Read that middle line again. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler. That is not decoration. That is the entire point, hidden in plain sight, and we are going to spend this episode on it, because the trait it names is not the one anyone expects, and it is the one almost nobody develops. Chapter 6, verses 6 through 11. I am going to do something different with the assignment this week, and it connects to what we have already been building. 3 weeks running, we counted things: what you owe, what you signed for, when your money arrived. Last week we stopped counting and asked a question. This week we go and watch, exactly as the passage says. Not an ant, but something closer to home, and I will tell you what at the end. First, let me just describe what the text actually puts in front of you, because it is more precise than it looks. The reader is told to consider her ways, not her strength, not her speed, her ways, the pattern of how she operates. And then the text lists what to notice, and the list is specific. She prepares her bread in summer. She gathers her food in harvest. 2 seasons, 2 verbs, both about laying something up before it is needed. The ant is not being praised for effort in the moment. She is being praised for provision across time, for doing, in the season of plenty, the thing that only pays off in the season of lack. And bracketing that, at the front of the sentence, is the clause that explains how remarkable it is. She does all of that with no one making her. Now, before we go further into what the text means, it is worth asking what the people who first heard it could actually have known about ants, because the answer shapes how we read the passage, and it cuts in an interesting direction. The ancient world was not working from entomology. Nobody in Solomon's era had studied the internal organization of an ant colony. They did not know about pheromone trails, about the division of labor between castes, about the queen, about the fact that an individual worker ant is responding to an immensely complex set of chemical signals from the colony around her. All of that is modern knowledge, and none of it was available. What they had was observation. Long, patient, close observation of the kind a herdsman or a farmer does without thinking of it as science. They watched ants the way they watched weather and animals, by seeing the same thing happen enough times to know it was a pattern. And here is what is interesting. What they saw from the outside was an insect that appeared to organize its own labor. An ant, watched by a human eye with no microscope and no chemistry, looks exactly like a creature working on its own initiative. It goes, it carries, it returns, it goes again. No one appears to direct it. There is no visible overseer walking the line, no signal being given, no one in charge. To the ancient observer, the ant was the very picture of a worker who needs no supervision, because the supervision that actually exists, the chemical coordination of the colony, is completely invisible to the naked eye. So the passage is built on exactly what could be seen, and it draws precisely the right lesson from what could be seen, even without the science. The observation is honest. The ant does prepare ahead. She does appear to act without a visible master. The text is not making a claim about ant biology that we now know to be false. It is making a claim about what self-directed provision looks like, and using the most familiar available example of it. This matters for how we handle the passage, and it is the kind of thing this channel would rather say out loud than paper over. The verse is not teaching zoology. If someone objects that ants are in fact highly coordinated and not really independent at all, they are correct about the biology and have missed the point of the text. The passage uses the ant as she appears, as a visible image of unsupervised provision, the same way we might say someone works like a machine without making a claim about mechanical engineering. The image carries the meaning is the thing. And Solomon's culture was not the only one that reached for this particular insect. The ant appears as a figure of foresight and self-started labor across the ancient world's storytelling, a small creature that lays up in advance while others do not, held up as a quiet rebuke to those who live only for the present moment. The pairing of the provident insect against the improvident one who ignored the coming season is one of those images that shows up again and again wherever people farmed and watched the ground, which tells us something useful. The ant was not a private symbol Solomon invented. It was a shared human observation, available to anyone who looked, and the passage is drawing on a picture its first hearers would already have recognized. That is part of why the instruction is simply, go and look. The reader was being sent to confirm with his own eyes something the culture already half knew. But the biblical passage does something the other versions of the image mostly do not. It does not stop at foresight. It adds the middle clause, no chief, no officer, no ruler. And that clause narrows the lesson from a general point about planning ahead into a sharper one about who has to be present for the planning to happen. Other tellings praise the ant for thinking of tomorrow. This one praises her for thinking of tomorrow with no one making her. That is a smaller target and a harder one, and it is the reason we are spending the episode on that one line. And the meaning lives in that list of three: no chief, no officer, no ruler. 3 words, and they are not simply 3 ways of saying the same thing for emphasis. In the world of the text, they describe 3 different kinds of authority a person might work under. The chief is the one who sets the direction, who decides what will be done. The officer is the one who organizes the doing, who arranges the work and keeps it moving. And the ruler is the one who enforces, who holds the power to compel, to punish the failure to comply. Direction, organization, enforcement. Between them, they cover the whole architecture of being told what to do. Someone to set the task, someone to structure it, someone to make sure you actually do it. The ant has none of the 3. No one sets her task. No one structures her day. No one compels her. And the work still gets done, on time, ahead of the season, at exactly the scale it needs to be done. That is the trait, not strength. The passage never mentions strength. Not speed, it never mentions speed. Not even effort, exactly. The trait is self-direction, the capacity to do the necessary thing when there is no one present to require it of you. And once you see that, the whole passage reorganizes around it, because self-direction is a very different thing from hard work. And the difference is the difference between the 2 kinds of people this book keeps describing. Almost everyone can work hard when someone is watching. Under a chief, under an officer, under a ruler, most people perform. The task is set, the structure is provided, the consequence is clear, and so the work happens. That is not the ant's trait. That is just responsiveness to authority, and almost everyone has it, because almost everyone has to. The ant's trait is what happens in the absence of all that. When no one sets the task, do you set it yourself? When no one structures the day, do you structure it? When no one is there to notice whether you did the thing or not, do you still do it? That is the question the passage is actually asking, and it is a much harder question than, do you work hard? Because it cannot be answered in public. Your performance under supervision is visible to everyone. Your self-direction is visible to almost no one, which is precisely why it is the trait most people never develop. There is no external pressure building it, because by definition it operates where external pressure is absent. Here is the connection to money, and it is direct. Almost every financial habit that matters happens in the unwatched hours. No one requires you to set aside part of what comes in. No one structures your spending. No one stands over you at the moment of the small decision, the one that no one will ever see, that no one will ever ask about. The chief, the officer, and the ruler are all absent from your actual financial life, which means your financial life is run almost entirely by whatever you do when no one is making you do anything. The person who provides ahead, who prepares bread in summer, who lays up in the season of plenty against the season of lack, is not doing it because someone required it. There is no one to require it. They are doing it because they have developed the one trait the ant has, and most people never build, the ability to do the necessary thing with no one watching. And it is worth being precise about why this trait is so rarely built, because the reason is structural, not moral. Almost every skill a person develops is developed under pressure. You learn to show up to work because there is a consequence for not showing up. You learn to meet a deadline because someone is waiting on the other end. Nearly all of human competence is trained into us by external requirement, by a chief, an officer, or a ruler somewhere in the system holding us to it. Self-direction is the one trait that cannot be built that way, because the moment external pressure is applied to it, it stops being self-direction and becomes ordinary compliance. You cannot be made to be self-directed. The instant someone makes you, it is no longer the thing, which means this is the single competence that has no external teacher. It can only be built by the person themselves, in the absence of the very pressure that builds everything else. That is why it is rare, not because people are lazy, but because the ordinary machinery that produces every other skill is structurally unable to produce this one. And it is why the passage does not say, "Obey your master well," or "Work hard when told." It sends the reader to an insect that has no master at all. Because the whole lesson is about the space where the master is absent, and money, more than almost anything else in a life, is governed in exactly that space. No one is in the room for the small transfer, the quiet decision, the choice to set something aside or not. The room is empty. What you do in the empty room is the whole of it. Now the passage turns, and it turns sharply, because after showing you the ant, it shows you the opposite. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. Look at how the ruin is described, because it is not described as a catastrophe. It is described as an accumulation of small permissions, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands. Each one is tiny, each one is reasonable. No single one of them is the mistake. The phrase is almost gentle, a little, a little, a little, because that is exactly how it happens. Not one large failure, but 1,000 small allowances, each of which felt completely defensible at the time. And then the arrival. Poverty comes like a robber, want like an armed man. Suddenly, from the outside, as though it appeared from nowhere. But it did not appear from nowhere. It was assembling the whole time, in all those little permissions, in the unwatched hours where no chief and no officer and no ruler was present to interrupt the drift. The robber was never far away. He was being invited in, a little at a time, by a series of small decisions that each looked like rest. That is the mechanism, and it is the same mechanism as the ant, running in reverse. The ant's provision is built out of small, self-directed actions, repeated in the unwatched hours, that add up to security. The sluggard's ruin is built out of small, self-permitted rests, repeated in the same unwatched hours, that add up to want. Same hours, same smallness, opposite direction. The only variable is what the person does when no one is making them do anything. which brings the principle down to your own unwatched hours. The trait that decides it is not effort, it is what you do when no one is making you. That is the line. The passage is not telling you to work harder in the hours when you are already being watched and measured and required. You probably already do. It is pointing at the other hours, the ones with no chief, no officer, no ruler, and asking what happens in them. Because that is where provision is either built or not built, quietly, in a place no one else can see. Now the part that has to be said with care, because this passage has been used badly, and this channel is not going to use it that way. The word the passage uses is sluggard, and it is aimed at a specific thing, the failure to act when action is possible and no one is requiring it. It is not aimed at people who cannot act. That distinction is everything, and the text supports it. The sluggard in Proverbs is not poor because the world crushed him. He is a man who has the capacity and the opportunity, and simply will not begin, who folds his hands when his hands are free to work. That is a real category of person, and the passage is honest about him. But it is not a description of everyone who is struggling, and reading it that way is a serious misuse of the text. There are people working 2 jobs who are exhausted, not lazy. There are people whose unwatched hours are already full, of caregiving, of a second shift, of a body that hurts, of a mind carrying more than anyone can see. The passage is not talking about them, and it does not license anyone to look at a tired person and call them a sluggard. The corpus itself, elsewhere, says plainly that there is food in the field of the poor that is swept away by injustice, that poverty has causes beyond the choices of the poor. Both things are in the book. A responsible reading holds both. So if you are exhausted rather than idle, this passage is not an accusation against you. It may even be a comfort, because it locates the trait not in how much you do, but in what you do with whatever unwatched time you actually have. And if you have very little, then very little is being asked. The ant is not measured against the horse. She is measured against her own capacity, used without supervision. So are you. So here is this week's task, and it fits the passage exactly. Go and watch. Not an ant, yourself. In one specific hour. Find the hour in your day that no one is watching. Not the hour when someone expects something from you. The hour where nothing and no one would notice, if you did nothing at all. Almost everyone has at least one, even if it is small. For 1 week, do not try to change that hour. Just watch it, the way the text says to watch the ant. Notice what it currently gets spent on. Notice what you do in it when there is no chief, no officer, no ruler. Because whatever that is, it is the truest picture you have of your own self-direction. And it is the hour where your provision is quietly being built or quietly being spent. There is nothing to fix this week. There is only something to see. The fixing, if there is any, comes after the seeing, and it cannot come before it. For any real decision about your resources, the pause still means bringing in someone who can see what you cannot. A principle this book has its own verse for, and its own episode later. Go to the ant. Consider her ways. And notice, above everything, the thing the passage puts right in the middle and most readers walk past. No one told her to. So the question for the comments is this: what does your unwatched hour currently get spent on? Be specific and be honest. The honest answers are the ones that help someone else recognize their own. Tell us. We read them. You have probably noticed by now that this channel keeps refusing the easy version of every verse, the one that would let us call a struggling person lazy or promise that hard work always pays. We keep saying what the text says and where it stops. If that is the version of this subject you have been looking for, subscribe. Because the next episode takes 2 households with the same income, the same money coming in, exactly the same, and asks why one of them builds something that lasts and the other consumes itself to nothing. The difference is not what they earn. It is what happens to what they earn. In the hours no one is watching. That is where we go next.